This is DB Sweeney from The Cutting Edge, and you are listening to Derek Thomas and Monday Morning Critic Podcast.
Welcome to episode 133 of the Monday Morning Critic. My next guest is a two-time Olympian. She represents the country of Brazil in the sport of figure skating. She is absolutely somebody you can stand up and cheer for. Please welcome Isadora Marie WILLIAMS. Isadora, how are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on.
So I have to tell you, I was watching the 2019 Figure Skating Championships from Japan. It might be one of the most impressive sporting events I've seen all year, and please understand, Isadora, I live in Massachusetts and I watched Tom Brady win his 6th Super Bowl, but I have to say, I was just blown away. Have you ever seen the movie The Cutting Edge?
Oh, of course. It's a classic, yes.
Yeah, so I played hockey my entire life, and while I appreciated the hockey aspects of that movie, it was the figure skating that really blew me away and really, I want to say for the last 20 years or 30 years or however long, I think it came out in 92, it really spurned on my interest in figure skating, and I am absolutely in love with the sport, and it might be the most beautiful sport on the planet.
Well, it's very nice of you to say. I think one of the things that draws a lot of people in is, of course, the artistry, the music, the costumes. But I think also because it's just short and intense performance. Like, sometimes games can go on for hours, but like skating is so it's so brief and it's so intense for those 4 or 2 minutes, depending on the short or the long program. And I think people get so invested into it, and it's intense for them as well.
Yeah, and that's really well said. And I got to say, it's like, so we're going to go into your life, which is very amazing as far as how you got started and the fact that you're representing Brazil. But, it's like years. You bust your ass. It's like years and years and years of training that basically and essentially comes down to, like you said, 2 or 3 minutes, right?
Right, yeah. The short program is only 2:45 and the long is 4 minutes. And, it's so crazy that can determine such an important moment in your life.
You talk about pressure. Find me another sport with that type of pressure. You'd be hard-pressed to do so.
Yeah, it's really intense. Even gymnastics, don't want to put them down. They're amazing athletes, but they have several rounds and several different events they can go through, But skating is just 2. That's it.
Well, you go through any sport, right? Even golf, you have a chance to come back. That's an individual sport. But, baseball, you have 4 at-bats. You have 180 games or whatever it is, 162. It's very rarely do you get to redeem there's no redemption in figure skating that's right away. It takes years and years, and it's like all figure skaters pour their life into this sport.
Mm-hmm. So it's a big investment.
Yeah, you're raised in Washington, D.C., born in Georgia. You have Brazilian citizenship through your mom, for those that don't know. Mm-hmm. You lived in Brazil for 2 years. Am I right with that, Isadora?
Correct.
Okay, where I live in Massachusetts, there is a very heavy Portuguese population. Now, you're fluent in Portuguese, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so, that must be great. Being bilingual, do you feel that the fact that you represent Brazil, do people recognize that? Are they on board with the huge accomplishments that you're achieving? Are they cheering for you at the Olympics? Do they know the great things you're doing?
It's actually amazing the support that comes from Brazil. People are so supportive. I will say there is a group of people who they say because I wasn't born in Brazil that I am not Brazilian, and I shouldn't have gotten the representation in Brazil, and I not a true blood, so to speak, but there's a lot of people who, quiet those people and are like, look what she's doing. She's putting our country on the world stage and getting recognition for Brazil and South America, and it's a great start. And, that's the goal, is to, try to raise awareness, get attention from South America, because, I think it's crazy that at this point it's only one person who's been to the Olympics in figure skating in women, and for women. And I think that there's so many capable girls.
And I'm talking to her.
Mm-hmm.
And people, and I should have said that because and I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's a big point, is that you are the first women that represented Brazil in figure skating in the Olympics. That's a huge accomplishment. I'm sorry for leaving that out.
I just wanted to, just emphasize that, we need that representation on a world stage, because there's so many capable boys and girls that I think could do so well in the sport, but I think just lack of awareness, saying, Brazil's not an ice or winter country, but neither is Texas or Florida, and we sent Olympians from there also. So it rarely snows down there, but they have very successful ice rinks, and I'm really excited. My federation and I were working on really big projects to try to encourage more people to skate.
Yeah, and that is anybody who says that you're not legitimately Brazilian or you don't deserve whatever is absolutely insane and miserable with their own lives and trying to take it out on somebody else, because that's not even, when I was doing research on your life, that's not even an issue in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you're as much Brazilian as I am on the planet Earth right now. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Thank you. Yeah, I grew up with a Brazilian mom, listening to Brazilian music, eating Brazilian food every day. I live in New Jersey right now, and I train there, but my family lives still in Washington, D.C. area, and all I make is rice and beans. I'm like, Mom, can you send me recipes? Because, everything I want to eat is Brazilian.
Oh, that's really sweet. And the fact that, are you still a student at Montclair State?
Yes. Unfortunately, with skating, I've had to take a lighter course load, so I'm a little bit behind, but I'm still there.
And you're a double major, nutrition and something. It's nutrition and what is the other one, Isadora? Do I have that right?
Yes. Well, I decided to switch my nutrition major into a minor and then major in business. Okay. All right. And we mentioned how you're the first woman. Is there a male that does it's my ignorance for asking you this. Is there a male that represents Brazil in the figure skating arena, or no? No. Currently, we don't have any athletes going to really major ISU events for Brazil. We have had in the past. We had a great ice dance team and a great male figure skater, Luis Manella, but he has since retired and he went to school. And then Carolina and her partner are training with other people, and they're trying to build up their reputations again with new partners. But it's been a struggle, but I think in the future we are bound to have some more athletes. How difficult, we mentioned the school side of things, how difficult is, and I know that's where you train to, or you did train, are you still training at Montclair State as well? Yeah, at Floyd Hall Arena. It's on the campus. It is really difficult. It requires a lot of time management, and something I struggle with quite a bit sometimes, but, it's all about trying to manage trying to block off times a day, designate one for practice, one for studying, one for eating, one for spending time at the gym, getting stronger for the ice, and then working, coaching. That's about it for my life. Not too much time to go out and party and whatnot. And when you're out there practicing, do people know that you've been to a few Olympics and you've done some pretty amazing things, or are they just like, oh, that's just somebody out there, skating? Do they know the achievements that you've had? Montclair actually offers a figure skating class, and a lot of times the instructor will have me go out there and kind of explain, what I did. And Montclair did a wonderful job. They were so supportive of when I was at the Olympics, and so a lot of people know, and I wasn't used to that, and it was kind of uncomfortable in the beginning. But it made me feel really appreciated, and I really liked that they did that. And the figure skating class after the Olympics was waitlisted so many times because I think some people were so excited about the sport, which is really cool. Do you think you think coaching's in your future? Well, you still have a lot left in the tank. You're very young. You're also experienced, which is kind of weird. You're not old for your age, but you're very experienced for your age, right? You've been to 2 Olympics. Mm-hmm. You've done all these wonderful things. Do you see yourself coaching down the road, way down the road? Yeah, definitely. I am now, and I think it's a very fulfilling career. And I think retirement for Olympic athletes is it's something very tough. Very mentally tough. I think Michael Phelps has recently exposed kind of the depression a lot of athletes can face after taking something that was so important in your life and exiting it all at once and so abruptly. So I think skating, for me, because it's so important, I think coaching would be a great alternate route after I'm done and still have it in my life and still feel the fulfillment, but in a different way by getting other people, other boys and girls really excited for the sport.
Yeah, you have the experience, and you certainly have a really positive way with people, it seems. What is your workout regimen? Does it change by season? Does it change depending on what you have coming up? Is that how that works?
Yes. So now that we're in the off season in the summer, my competition schedule picks up more towards the fall and winter and early spring. We're working a lot more on strength training. So a lot of compound, very heavy exercises, trying to build up strength. And so when the competition season starts, we can kind of wean off of that, but I still have the strength from the summer to push me through the end of the season.
Yeah, and one of the things I did want to ask you, does Brazil pay for anything, or is it just as far as travel or anything like that, or is it just the honor of representing them? Is that how that works? How does that work? No,
we have a very reputable federation, and they're wonderful. They work with me on everything. They're like, what do you need? How can we help you? And we have some sponsors, and my federation gets some funding from the Brazilian government, and they help me. And we do cover a little bit. I don't make enough salary to cover my living expenses, so that's kind of where coaching comes into play. And so what basically goes on is they pay for my practice and my travel and my coaching expenses, and then I cover the rest.
And what I want to say to those people who say that you're not you weren't whatever the Brazil thing, I almost want to say how about that little girl watching you that's not the one in college or the kids that adore you want to become, but I'm talking about that one kid that nobody expects to ever be a figure skater that watches you from Brazil and is like, I want to be, that's my hero right there. I mean, those are the kids that are really the ones that you're really affecting without, I think people know it, but it's the ones you don't know that you're affecting that almost makes all the difference in the world.
It's really heartwarming to hear some stories like that. I did get some that were like, my daughter watched you on the Olympics and she wanted to go skating right away. And I had some idols that, that was basically my case, back in 2002, and when, Sarah Hughes won the Olympics, and Michelle Kwan skated beautifully, and I was just in awe. It's so strange that's how the wheels have turned so much, and that's how it is now. I love seeing that inspiration for kids to skate, and I'm really happy that it was so exposed to so many people. Social media, on TV, and everything.
Because you've been there, because you were that 5-year-old girl, dad took you public skating, and you just fell in love with it, right? I mean, you just,
right.
And that's how it works, right? That's how it all develops.
Yeah, and to be quite frank, I wasn't really that great at any other sport, too. I think my size catered to the sport. I was not great at soccer, regardless to my Brazilian genes. Tennis, anything with a ball, I really didn't do wonderful at, but it was something that drew me to skating always.
I'll tell you what, I'll put any soccer player in the world on ice, and I'll have you kick a soccer ball, and we'll see who does better at. We'll see the comparisons there, because figure skating might be the toughest sport on the planet. How does coaching work, Isadora? Is it sports where coaches change just for philosophical reasons, or I don't want to get too personal. If you don't want to talk about it, you can completely ignore that question. But how does coaching work, and coaches that you add or subtract on a basic level? How does that work?
Yeah, so everybody's coaching team or coaching situation is different. There's a lot of coaches who will specialize in a certain area. And for example, my coaches were ice dancers, and ice dancers don't jump. They perform, they do spins, they do lifts, they do amazing things, but they do not jump. So sometimes, but I'm experienced enough now in my career that I know usually I can, see what's going on, what's wrong, what's off. If I like look at a video of myself, I'm like, oh, this is what's going on. But sometimes I go through stages where it's like we're learning a more difficult jump, or I'm having a really rough time for a week, and they are so willing to help, and they're so like, my coaches are not prideful in that sense, and they're like, they'll get a jump coach from another area to come in and look and see like, or troubleshoot my jumps and see if this is what's wrong. So, we work with a lot of people. Sometimes we'll work with dancers for choreography, or sometimes we'll work with, different people for spins or something. But my core coaches, they're both ice dancers. But some people, they work with people who were former figure skaters. One of the most famous pair skating coaches in the world, she was actually never a figure skater. Her mother was a coach, and she was at the rink every day, but she never skated herself, and she's one of the top coaches. So it's different across the board.
Right, and that's well said. And I'm a bit of a, I love movies. I'm a bit of a smartass as well. But, the movie Blades of Glory, right? How is the report? And this is going to come across elementary, but there's really a good question here. So how is the rapport with other figure skaters? Like, I'm just going to throw a name out there. Like, do you ever talk to a guy like, Nathan Chen and say, just talk shop about, moves and like, how does that work? Or is it legitimately like a rivalry? Like, because it is an individual sport, it is very competitive. How is it? Like, how is the rapport? I mean, I don't want you, obviously you can say whatever you want, how you can go however deep you want, but is there people from other skaters you talk shop with? How does that work? The rapport and so forth.
They're like skaters. A lot of skaters are really great friends with one another. I mean, there are some rivalries. There's rivalries within certain countries. There's rivalries within certain divisions. But for the most part, everybody's really good friends, and everyone gets along really well. And a lot of people are like super humble. Like Nathan Chen, like I've known him before he was Nathan Chen. Right. And I knew him when he was like a little pipsqueak. And, I think it's so crazy to see how much he's grown and how incredibly talented he's become. And like his accomplishments are just unreal. And the fact that he's going to Yale, finishing a pre-med degree and training full time, I think is incredible. But a lot of people are just really humble, really just normal people. And two of my best friends, Kailani and Emmy, Emmy represents Finland and Kailani represents Australia. Like, we've grown really close over the years because, we understand what each other go through. And we actually all compete in the same division. We're all singles. We're all ladies singles. And, that rivalry, we all recognize it, but we all want each other to do so well.
Right. It's a healthy, and that's good to hear because I'm, just speaking on the male side of things. I mean, you're amazing, and we're going to get to more of your story in a second. But when I was watching that competition from Japan, and I was watching Nathan Chen, it's I'm going to tell you, Isadora, it's for anybody who loves sports, it's absolutely like. I'm gonna be over the top here. It's like breathtaking to watch him. Like it's it's unbelievable. Like it's for somebody that watches that and isn't blown away. They should have their blood pressure checked.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. It's really nice to know that someone appreciates it.
The one thing I think I would be really good at in the ice skating ring, I'd be really good at picking music because I love movie scores and I love a lot of your choices. By the way,
thank you.
How does that work? Like so like I know a lot about like you can play I can't remember what I had for dinner last night. But I can tell you music, not so much the vocal music, but like movie scores in a movie that happened 30 years ago, some obscure movie. How does that work? Is the routine developed first and the music added on? Is the music decided first, then you add your routine? How does that work? I mean, these are all like basic questions, but a lot of people really don't know a lot of this stuff.
No, I think it's a really great question. So basically, you usually choose the music first. You want to grab inspiration from something. Doesn't always have to be from a story. Like my short program this year was Take 5 by David Brubeck, and it was just a composed piece. It wasn't from a movie or anything, but we created kind of a character revolving around the style of the music and the era. But a lot of times, people will take it from classic movies like Phantom of the Opera or plays like Carmen, and they'll try to portray a character. And you develop a costume, and the routine is revolved all around this character. And a lot of times, a lot of skaters, like especially ice dancers, because all they do is perform. They have technicalities, but not the same as single skaters do. But my two idols in figure skating, Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer of Canada, they skated to Moulin Rouge, and beforehand, like, they really tried to embrace the two characters, and I think it just came across so beautifully at the Olympics. And yeah, so that's it. We just try to grab inspiration, and we revolve the routine around it.
So I know you have a busy schedule. I'm sure like there's not a ton of like Netflix time or movie time, but are you ever watching a movie where you hear a score and you're like, Jesus, I would love to skate to that, or my God, that would make for some fantastic music? Does that ever happen a lot, or no? Or maybe you're in the car driving. Yeah.
All the time. Everything, even like music that I would never skate to, I'm like just imagining choreography to it. So it's like, what was I watching? Like, I'm trying to remember what movie it was, but like the Game of Thrones finale. I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan, and I thought some of the music from this season was so beautiful, and I was thinking about that, and it's a really common thing. We'd be like, that movie sucked, but did you hear that music? That was really good.
that's a good point, and I have to say, you know, I've had some people on the show, and you know, I had a writer on, and he won, you know, Academy Award after he was on my show. So when you win your medal, I do want I expect to be thanked publicly for that. So you know, there's so much I want to ask you here, but you know, do you ever? And this is going to be like such an obvious question, but it really, as an athlete, it's an important one. Like, do you ever feel alone out there? I mean, I know you're properly trained. You got some great people in your, you know, coaching group, and you have some great support. But do you ever feel alone out there, or is that something you have to put away pretty quickly?
I think naturally I'm a very independent person, and so I don't really know what it's like to perform with a team. I don't know if you mean in the context of a competition or just on a day-to-day training basis.
I mean like all right. So one of your bigger competitions, I think, in your life was 2013 Nebelhorn. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Because that determined whether you were going to the Olympics or not. Am I correct with that?
Correct. Yeah.
So that's a huge moment for you. So you're on the ice. I get you're a premier athlete. I get all this stuff. I get you're trained. But are you ever, when you're out there by yourself, and I get that that's the nature of the sport, but are you ever at the point where, oh my God, I have to do, like, this has to work for me? Getting back to our earlier point of the importance of that 2 or 3 minutes. Does it ever get to you? Do you feel it? You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe in practice you have a coach yelling at you, or not yelling in a bad way, but, you know, giving you encouragement, or, you know, what? Does that ever weigh on you, or is that something you don't even think about?
I don't really think about the loneliness. I haven't really known anything else. And to go deeper into it, I think one of the things that I always was drawn to in figure skating was like the control I had over the outcome. And it was like, I just didn't like this is going to sound horrible, but I didn't like the aspect of not being able to know what someone else was going to do.
Right.
And I think, you know, I found comfort in, if I trained, I can be comfortable with myself. But in the same regard, like if I wasn't trained, I knew I wasn't trained, and it gave me so much extra anxiety. And but definitely the nerves, the magnitude of the situation. I think one of the scariest things is when you're in at Worlds, it was like 30,000 people were in the stadium, and like you see all those little heads all the way in the back where they look like ants, and it's like, wow, this is a really big event. Wow.
So have you seen the movie Miracle?
Yes, I have.
There's a scene where he beats the Russian team, and he takes a moment to himself, and he pumps his fist because it's what he's been going after for the longest time, since he was a teenager when he tried out for the team. After Nebelhorn, after your routine where you find out you make the Olympics, right? Is there a moment where you're like, I don't want to say the word, but effing yes, like you.
Oh, for sure. I've had a lot of effing yes moments in my career. But, yeah, Nebelhorn, my first one, was a really big one. You know, Nebelhorn, the second time around. The 2017 Worlds, even though that one I didn't make the final, I did the best program that I could. Like, I did everything that I was planning to do. I wasn't as advanced as a skater as I have developed to be now. But that was great. And then the short program at the Olympics was one of the happiest moments of my life.
How important is the crowd? So, right, does it does it impact the way you do things? Like if the crowd's into it, I mean, your adrenaline must be through the roof, right? I mean, that's got to be a feeling that's comparable to nothing else.
Yeah, it's better to have a large crowd like the one in Japan or the one at the Olympics than a low crowd or like a very small crowd, because I think the thing that kills your enthusiasm is lack of enthusiasm.
Yeah, good point.
It's hard to perform when you're not performing to many, or you're not performing to any. I've had events where the only people in the stands were like a few scattered other skaters and maybe their parents who would walk in and out, and there was nobody there. Like some of the remote locations in Eastern Europe, there weren't some people, and it was a little bit discouraging, but but then it makes those events like Worlds and Olympics that much more special, and you appreciate it that much more.
Yeah, that's really well said. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, all figure skaters, I'm sure, go through this where there's a mistake early on, you fall early on. How tough is that to kind of just work your way through for the rest of the routine? Does that really get to you, or do you have to find a way as an athlete just to put it out of your head and do what you know best?
It's very hard. I've had situations, and that's kind of what happened at the Olympics in my long program. I had a really shaky first jump, and then I overthought things and tried to overcompensate with the rest. And, instead of just trusting my practice and trusting my training. And I think, because it is a performance-based sport, it's not like a goal-oriented, it's not like, a scoring system, so you just have to keep going, and you have to keep trying to get that out of your head and trying to trust the process and take one jump or one element at a time. But it's really hard. It's really easier said than done. And
there's that risk, Isadora, of trying to be this, I think you had touched on this a little bit, trying to be the skater you're not, right? You're like, oh my God, I fell here, so I better overcompensate by doing, and then you become out of your zone to the point where you're doing things that you weren't practicing. And I mean, is that kind of a fair statement? Like you're trying to compensate for that mistake early on, and that's not how you train for that Olympic event or that.
Right.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. One of the other things that I wanted to ask you was, so Sochi is your first Olympics, right? And then you make huge gains in PyeongChang, so that's got to feel good for you, right?
Yeah, just brushing on the Olympics, the 2014 games, I was in dead last. I did not skate to how I was capable of, and I wasn't well trained, and I was inexperienced, and I think the thought of the Olympics was just so daunting, and I don't think we handled it right either. A big thing was that usually ladies figure skating is one of the last events of the Olympics, and we were there from opening ceremony, and to be there for that long in that type of environment it's so beautiful and so amazing, but it's so mentally exhausting. And so this time around, we left 2 weeks before my event, and we trained for we didn't train for 2 days because we got there on a Friday. There was no practice Saturday or Sunday, but I was able to train for a week and a half instead of 3 weeks, and I just felt so much more refreshed, so much more hungry. But I also felt like I was rested because I was able to train at home for longer.
Right.
And I had control over my practices.
And it's not even so much where you finished in 2014, right? Like, who cares? I mean, you learned a lot, because clearly in 2018 you've taken some serious steps forward, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I grew a lot as an athlete. As far as not making excuses, realizing where I need to put in work and actually putting the work in, and realizing that everyone's not out to get me. I need to that everyone's just trying to help, because Russians can be intense.
And then are the plans to go 2022 Beijing?
Yes, the plans are to do one more Olympics right now, and qualification starts not 2020 but 2021.
Oh, I mean, you've got to be so excited for that. I mean, because you're going in the right direction. It seems like you've learned a lot from 2014. What's the one thing you wish you? I mean, you mentioned some of it. You did touch on some of this, but what's the one thing or maybe two things or more, you wish you knew in 2014 that you learned in 2018? Was it preparation? Was it not realizing everybody's out to get you? Is that kind of the basic stuff that you wish you knew?
I think one of them was definitely the amount of training that I had to put in. I put in twice as much for PyeongChang than I did for Sochi. And then second of all, I think the experience, I knew what to expect, even though every Olympics is so unique in its own way. And I think, that's a really beautiful part of it, but I knew how it was structured. I knew what going there was going to be like. And I think I found solace in that. I found comfort in that because it wasn't all such a big unknown.
Right, and it's even like the little things or like getting sleep at night, like because your mind. I mean, I don't know how you work, late at night, but when I'm thinking about my next day or whatever, I just have thoughts racing in my head. Forget the fact that I'm not an Olympian. My God, I mean, you must have such a plethora of thoughts just in your mind, and I mean that's got to happen, right? And there's got to be a lot of nights where you're just thinking and thinking and thinking. Are you one of these people when your head hits the pillow, you're out?
No, I definitely deal with, racing thoughts. Like, it's hard to sleep the night before the competition, but me and my coach, we just talked through it, and he really did a great job of just letting me express how I felt, and, a lot of the times just trying to rationalize it. And it was really good this time around because I was so confident in how much I trained at home, which I wasn't when I was in Sochi. I knew that I was underprepared, and I definitely think that was a big factor into why I did why I did not what I was not capable of. I was really a horrible performer in Sochi, but I was really focused on redeeming myself in PyeongChang, and but it wasn't just a statement. I knew that I had done the work to redeem myself, and I was really confident in that, and I could sleep soundly at night knowing I did everything I could. Right,
and I watched a lot of your performances. I mean, it's amazing because you certainly have the ability, and the fact that you've made such great strides gives me not that it would otherwise, but I just have so much hope for you going into Beijing. I just think I'm so pulling for you just to. Not only just to see you happy, but just to it'd be so nice. It'd be such a great story of this girl that just has been working her ass off her whole life. You know what I'm saying? And I'm so pulling for you in Beijing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I totally just sound like a 15-year-old right there.
No, thank you. It's so sweet. It's really encouraging.
So one of the things that I did want to ask you is so in other sports, the officiating. Like, people have issues with it, whether it's a, umpire, referee. I don't know if I even should ask you this because I feel like I don't want your answer to sabotage you going forward. But when you know the judges, are you ever like, are you kidding me? Like, I just gave a performance of a lifetime and that's my score? Like, is there ever, like, under your breath a moment where you're like, is there a moment when it comes to the judges where you're just... Oh, really? That's my score? Really? After everything I just did? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with disappointment or difference of opinion with judges? How does that work with you and with skaters?
You just try your best to do as much as you can to give them as little to criticize, basically.
No.
But it's really hard. But it's never going to be a black and white sport. It's not going to be like who got the puck through the goal or who got the ball past the touchdown zone. It's like
right.
It's a performance. It's a performance-based sport, and that is a big factor in it. And there's always going to be difference of opinion. So, at times you just have to live with the result, and because there's not a whole lot you can do to change it, and you have to just do your best to give them as little to critique as you can.
And I wonder, Isadora, how much of it is like, the NBA, right? Because people used to joke when Michael Jordan played, he could get a foul called because he's Michael Jordan. I wonder how many figure skaters, because of maybe they have a bigger name than others, get the beneficial score because of their name, not because of what they did. I wonder if that happens.
All the time.
Yeah?
It does happen. Yeah.
How does one become a skating official? I mean, I would hope that they have a pretty extensive resume, that I hope it's because boxing is very shady, and that's an understatement. I would hope figure skating goes through more of a stringent process.
Yeah, and especially, we had a whole reform in our judging system after the 2002 Olympics in Salt Lake, after they realized that the pair team, they actually did an investigation and they found a lot of corruption and a lot of embezzlement within the event. And they reformed it to the IJS system where now elements have a certain score. Because you remember the 6.0 system, because a lot of people still reference that don't know skating. And I'm like, we haven't used that system in 15 years, but it's all good.
Right.
But so basically elements have certain jumps, certain spins, they have a base score. And then the judges can determine was it for example, like an axle. If it was a good axle versus a bad axle, you still get credit for the axle, but you can get pluses or minuses. And then there's still a presentation score, but it's much more fair. And judges have to go through a very tough schooling process and they're always getting reviewed. They're always getting their events that they judge that reviewed. And it's almost like a court system now. And it's very strict and it's much better than it used to be. But of course, there's still politics that come into play. But I will say that our system is much more fair and much more honest than it was.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. And I have to say, one of the things that kind of bothered me a little bit, and again, I don't want you to put yourself in a position that's awkward, but I was listening when I was watching, I think it was March, the event in Japan. I don't know, there was one skater, I think he was from the U.S., and they weren't shitting on him, but they were basically implying he's afraid to take chances. You're just going to get this steady, playing it safe routine. And I'm like, well, why would you say that? I don't know. I had an issue with the way they were treating this guy. I mean, they weren't disrespectful. They were like, he's a great skater, he's phenomenal, but the whole sentiment of their broadcast during his performance was he plays it safe, don't expect this, don't expect that, and this is why he pretty much won't. And they didn't say it like I'm saying it now, but this is why he'll finish, in the medals. Do the skaters take into account? And I know a lot of the announcers are former skaters. How much of that do skaters absorb, or is it something that goes in one ear and out the other?
It depends. It goes different from person to person. Some people take critique really hard and to heart, and then some people take it, they try to get whatever constructive criticism is in that, and they try to use it to their advantage. But it's hard, because a lot of people, especially with the internet now, athletes see what people say about them, and it can be very hard to go out again. And in certain situations, some people have I know a skater that they're talking about, but sometimes skaters have total flops and it's just a horrible performance. And sometimes it's so hard to redeem yourself because people can go on YouTube and watch it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And where in the past you couldn't do that. But it's up to you to try to get thick skin and realize what's important and what's not.
No, that's really well said. Yeah, and not only just skating, but just life, I think, Isadora, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. How many competitions do you do a year?
I do around 5 to 6 big ones, and then maybe I'll do 1 to 2 local ones in the tri-state area just to, practice performing a new program.
Is everything like, Nebelhorn where it comes down to one final event, or is it points you earn during the year? How does Olympic qualification work? And then I have one more question, and I won't beat you up anymore.
No, this is a great. I'm having fun here, but basically, Nebelhorn anybody can enter, but there can only be typically everyone's trying to get the last 6 Olympic spots, so they don't have any of the countries that have already gotten Olympic spots at Worlds. 24 skaters at Worlds get spots for the Olympics, and then 6 people get it at Nebelhorn. And to qualify for Worlds, you have to, at any ISU event, ISU stands for International Skating Union, at any of their events, anyone can enter. You have to get a certain number of points. It's not by placement to go to the World Championships. World Championships is very hard to get into now. Only the top skaters. It's gotten really difficult to get to Worlds now, but you have to get a certain score in both the long and the short, and then you're able to go to Worlds. But it's not by placement. It's not by ranking. But qualification for the Olympics goes 24 and then 6 at Nebelhorn in the fall.
Yeah, and I wish you so much luck, and I hope you come back on because you're such a fun person to talk to. You're so pleasant. You're very uplifting.
Thank you.
I wish all my guests were like this. I really do. I can't let you go without because I told DB Sweeney, he's been on the show and he did the intro for this interview, who plays Doug Dorsey in The Cutting Edge.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, best moment in the Cutting Edge is when Doug Dorsey looks at Kate Mosley and tells her he loves her before the routine. Is that the best moment in the movie, you think?
I think the best moments are the crazy lifts they do. And just the fact that he can go from hockey to skating so quickly, like, I just commend that. I'm like, wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, I know it's cheesy and hokey, but I got to say, that movie got me into loving and just absolutely adoring figure skating. And for those listening, I'm a big fan of yours, and I'm a big fan of the sport. It's so there's a lot of people that just love it, to death, but it's so underappreciated because it's so beautiful. It's so sweet. It's like a symphony. And I love watching your work. And thank you so much for being on the show today, Isadora.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was such a great interview. I would love to get back on if you'd have me.
Absolutely.